Welcome back, welcome back. Karibu Kandi. Uh, Again, I keep seeing a lot of new people. This is great. I'm glad to have some new people joining us. Um, gonna pin. Welcome back, welcome back. So today's topic is youth leadership. What is the state of youth leadership in Burundian community? Hanze y'igihugu hamwe no mu gihugu cy'u Burundi. And what is the role? It seems we're heading towards that conversation. What is the role of diaspora, and how can we collaborate? We're gonna wait a few more minutes to bring on our next guest. But again, I'm gonna emphasize this. Alex is amazing. I now just want to take a plane and go to Burundi so I can attend one of his workshops. He is great. If you have any questions for our guests, please feel free to ask those in the comments. And also, if you have any contributions to the conversation. I am learning a lot so far, and I can't wait to see what I can learn from our next guest. Without further ado, I'm gonna bring her on, and then we can continue with the conversation. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well.
Awesome.
So we're being asked to use Kirundi. Should we use Kirundi and English, or
I think we can do
just
both.
one? We can do both.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do back and forth. And you did ask some very specific questions. Very difficult to answer in Kirundi, but maybe the greeting can be in Kirundi. Turashobora kuramukanya mu Kirundi kwanza hama
Okay,
tukagira
nakibaza.
ibibazo mu Congereza après.
Sawa. Sinzi
Yeah.
ko utangura ukabanza kwidondora ku batakuzi,
Oh my goodness.
ibyo ukora, and utuye he, things like that.
So hi everybody. Je nitwa Arielle Kayabaga. J'habite à London. This is going to be really difficult to say in one language. I think all three languages are just going to start flying in. But nitwa Arielle, by London, Ontario, au Canada. I'm a city councillor here in London. I've been elected for 2 years now. It's my term. My second year is going to be full at the end of the year, in December. I am a mom. I am a sister, a daughter, an auntie, a friend, and a community builder. So yeah, that's all I can say about me. If you want, that's how I introduce myself. If you want to get more technical about, my resume, I would invite people to check out www.ariellekayabaga.com. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk, discuss this with us, because I think it's a very important topic for us to discuss, as you saw with the last guest.
Yeah, I actually watched a good part of it. It was I like the ending, where he took the end of that. I want to share something from what he said.
Right.
I'm gonna pull this up a little bit here so I can show you guys. So this was right here, my campaign slogan, I guess, or yeah, it was like someone made this for me, and it says, "Sometimes you are the change you want to see." I would remove the sometimes right now, given the experience and where I'm at, in my role, and since I've been elected. But what he was saying is actually true. You have to want to be the change that you want to see, in order to bring the change. So the change starts with you, and it goes out to the others. But if you don't change yourself and you don't change your intentions and motives, it doesn't really add up and match up to what you want to do in the community. So yeah,
I think it's kind of like it has become sort of a cliche, because you hear all of these, like the Dalai Lama or all these prestigious or people that, we follow, or the role
Yeah.
models that we follow saying it, but to actually apply it into the things that we do, then
Hmm.
I think that's a challenge that comes about.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so if I may start, could you tell us a little bit more about like your decision to run for city council, and sort of what inspired that pursuit?
So I was being involved in a lot of different community work, and I did notice that a lot of city councils or municipal work or even politics here in Canada is not really representative of everybody who actually lives in the city.
Hmm.
And you look for someone who can carry your voice, someone who can do something or carry some type of vision that represents you, is not exclusionary of your community or even other people. And it was really hard to find that, and I felt like it was such a huge expectation to expect that someone else is going to get up and understand my vision and my work and the stuff that I want to see for my community. And I
Right.
decided, instead of having that expectation off of someone, why don't I just get involved and just do it? And that's how it started. It really just started from a place of wanting to do more in my community, and then I ran from there. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Did you have any other leadership roles prior to that, uh, in your community?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call them, I think leadership is a very loose term, right? And
Uh-huh.
especially in this decade where we're walking into like a new norm of doing things, and watching like what COVID has really changed for us. I would say that leadership is like, for me, is a loose term. I think
Hmm.
everybody's a leader, right? Because you have something you lead somehow, some way, right? Like if
Right.
you have even a pet at home, or
Uh-huh.
even a plant, like you're leading the life of that plant or the life of that pet. And
Hmm.
so, and the more we make leadership universal to everybody, where they can finally understand that they have to be involved in their communities to contribute to the change in their communities, it becomes a collective goal. It becomes a collective burden for everybody, and it's not just
Hmm.
some people who we choose who have to do this. So I would say I'm a leader in my home. I'm a leader in my community.
Hmm.
I have a child that I lead every day. So yes, I was a leader.
Hmm.
Um, and I was doing a lot of roles in my community, but the leadership that I guess the leadership I was part of was more to work with everybody, but not to like lead people. I
Hmm.
worked at a school at the time, and my job was to do some work around diversity engagement with the school. And before that, prior to that, I was working as a at the Liberal Research Bureau, which was under the Prime Minister's office. So
Hmm.
that was the word. I did have some political experience,
Right.
but that's not why I did it. I think I did it because I understood the power of city building versus being in politics, because there's a difference, right?
Hmm.
When you're trying to build a community versus when you're trying to participate in the political system to make it like a career versus contributing to make communities better. So that's where I was coming from. And
Hmm.
so I guess in that respect, it makes me a leader. And I think everybody's a leader. I think my son's a leader, and
Right.
because he has stuff that he has to take care of, right? And he's responsible
Hmm.
to take care of those things, and how he engages with people around him is what makes him a leader.
Yeah, and I'm glad that's sort of becoming a common phrase here, that everybody can be a leader. I specifically asked that because I think um, a lot of people do see it, and a lot of people do understand it. But I want to also sort of kind of tackle the idea that, um, so me thinking about the Burundian diaspora community, specifically here in the US, or even in the community where I stay, um, we that's that same understanding of I can be a leader, or I have the leadership qualities, has also been sort of a negative,
Mhm,
a negative aspect in the
mhm,
community. I can give an example with churches. I grew up in the church, and that's one of the issues that we discuss when we talk about the divisions within the diaspora community
mhm.
here in the US. And so, it was a lot of sort of disagreements over who should be in charge.
Right.
And if I'm not in charge, then I'm gonna start my own thing, and
Mm,
take this certain number of people. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, where, or at least how do we sort of diverge or bring apart the whole, good leaders and bad leaders, and how do we sort of navigate distinguishing who should be in leadership roles in certain environments?
That's a very good question. So I think, and this is just my thoughts, because I've been doing a lot of thinking around that. When you watch all the issues that we're facing, around the Black Lives Matter movement, around the basically the loopholes that COVID has really exposed in each respective countries, when it comes to homelessness, addiction, mental health, all these issues that we have, hunger, genocides, killings, all that kind of stuff. That stuff is exposed by a lack of leadership, actually, not
Right.
because of a bad leadership. There's no such a thing as a bad leadership. You're either a leader or you're not. And leadership really just means service, like how you serve others and, push them to serve more and to feel connected and feel that people are contributing to one collective goal to advance, I guess, civilization or humanity. So I'm what I think, in my opinion, what leadership should or not should look like. I don't want to impose anything on people, but my thoughts around leadership are that there needs to be a common goal. How can you and I find a common goal that we can rally around, that even if we had different discourse on how we get to that plan, but we still have a common goal. So let's say my common or our common goal is to have a safe community, right? And then you're thinking, in order to have a safe community, I think we need to implement technology only. Right. And I'm thinking like, no, we need to think about food. We need to think about jobs like transportation, all these things. How do I engage you to use your plan of technology to contribute to my plan of housing, transportation, all these things, even though we have different plans on how to reach the common goal, and we're all partners around the common goal, and we move forward. So a lot of times when it comes to leadership, why it fails, it's because there isn't a vision for the people. There isn't a one common goal or collective plan that everybody rallies around. We have a lot of leadership where it's top down and down up, and it's not partners around one common vision. Right. And there will be people who will be at the top, serving in those spaces. And how do they engage people who are of the community, who you would consider down, in order to not have a tyranny of the top and have a tyranny of the down? Because if we have tyranny from the top going down, it's not going to work. And that's what we see in a lot of leadership in Africa sometimes. And if we have the tyranny of the down up, where one specific group, let's say your group of technology people, are really rallying and pushing the top to do only what you're saying, then again, the vision dies, the plan dies. So what we do is we come up with a plan that we can work together around a shared vision. And around that shared vision, all of our collective plans can actually build to fit into that one shared vision. So it's like a table. And in the middle of the table, that's our leader is the goal, the collective goal, the common goal that we have. And everybody else around it is a partner. And when they are working in their respective, jobs or lanes, I like to call it a lane. When you're in your lane, and you're doing your part, then it's no longer seen as like people who are trying to be on top of each other. Everybody's gifted to do different things. Everybody is called to do different things. We just got to make sure that we keep the one vision together and working towards the one vision. So we're all partners in a way. And that's what motivates us. And people want to be involved in things that they feel like it's my plan and it's my vision. And I'm working with other people around the table to bring it to life. And the vision has to be timeless as well. Because if your vision has a specific timeline, then it's not a vision. Your vision has to be timeless. It has to be able to be sustained within the next 50, 100 years. And that's what, and everybody else who comes into that plan kind of sees themselves. So a lot of people like to ask, why don't we have the youth involved in leadership roles and politics and anything that makes decisions? Well, the reason why they're not really involved is because nobody has set a vision. And that vision can't be one person's vision. It has to be from the down to the top. and then we build around that vision together. And the people who are being sent to the top have to continue having that really easy flow between the top and the down, so that we are all respecting each other in the work that we're doing. I don't know if that's a lot of information to lay down on you right now, but that's my thoughts.
No, I would really love to read a book on this that's written by you. So, but what I'm getting from that is sort of everybody sort of surrounding the whole the vision or the collective vision of what we're trying to accomplish, and having that as the leader of what we are doing. Um, but here again, I'm still kind of probing on the whole issue of having two different lanes, as you're calling it. Let's say, people who have two different ideas to implement the same goal. So can you speak more of how we get to that collaborative stage, not only by realizing the vision that we both have, but in terms of uh, uh, sort of putting our individualism aside and creating that collectivism. How do we get there?
I think it's as simple as saying hello to someone. I think it's as simple as asking someone. I don't know if this is. I mean, I can speak on where I live and where, been in Canada. I also was born in Burundi. And I know that in Burundi, people say hi to each other all the time. In North America, it's not the most common thing to just walk down the street and say hi to everybody you see. In fact, you might be considered to be a creep, right? If you start saying hi to everyone. But how do we go back to the time where that was super normal, to just walk by someone and say good morning and how are you feeling, and help each other and figure out, what are the needs? Like, if you see someone struggling on the street, how can you just walk by, right? If you see, and this has become so normal. It's become so normal, especially, and I'm going to speak for here and for Burundi as well, because I've also seen it in Burundi where there are children who are panhandling on the street, children, like little kids, panhandling with no parents, and we all just walk by, right? And even when you stop to engage with them, some people think you're crazy. Some people think you got money to waste. Some people think you just have time to kill for the day. And then you think about the North American system, where we have such rich countries, many empty buildings, lots of food that goes into the garbage on a daily basis, and yet you still see people who sleep on the street and who are hungry, and we all just choose to close our eyes. So somehow, some way, this behavior has been learned, because in the past, this was not part of who we were. We were at one point living together. Someone just said Ubuntu, right? Like, we were at one point living together as a collective, but we've gone away from that. And we now have systems like capitalism that is causing us to live a certain way where everybody is fending for themselves and themselves only. And we know that doesn't work. So how do we go back to building into that vision and into that collective plan? Like, what do you need as a person to survive? You need a safe community. You need food security. You need, a way to make money so you can feed yourself and feed your family. You need a way to get to that job. You need things that are super basic. And a lot of people don't have the basic needs met. So in order for us to have a collective plan, we need to talk to each other. We need to engage with each other. We need to not fear one another. And we also need to be responsible at keeping everybody around us super safe. So if I talk to you and say, hey, what's going on? Like, what are you going to, eventually you're going to share some stuff with me, right? Like, we get to know each other and we connect with one another. We're going to start sharing stuff. And from those conversations we're having, we're going to identify some of the needs or some of the plans or some of the ideas that we have to move forward, either Burundi or, whatever we're working on, right? Whatever plan or vision that we may have, we're going to have that discussion. So once we have the discussion, we're going to identify the common goal or the common vision that we have, which is to create a better world, a safer world, a more equitable world, right? And everything else after that comes within that plan. Let's say the vision is to reduce poverty by 70% in the next, 5-10 years. It's my responsibility to work towards that, and also to keep track of that number that I've set, right? And then once we hit that number, then we go higher and we keep working together, because our vision is the same. Our vision is that we create a better world, or we eradicate racism, or we eradicate poverty, or homelessness or whatever else that we may have as a plan. But I think it all starts with just a simple conversation. Like, we need to talk. And a lot of people don't talk because of their differences. They focus so much on what makes them so different and not on what, because at the end of the day,
bring us together.
if we're all humans, I know we need the basic needs. The basic needs are the same, right?
Right.
And everything else is just extras that we have built to continue to feed into a system that doesn't even serve us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from what you're saying there, I'm still hearing the whole idea of being led by vision, goal, and also principles. I think is another thing that I gathered from that.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, I guess even the entire world, I think we're more leaning towards the idea that I have to follow a certain person rather
Mm.
than a certain principles. And that's making me sort of want to ask the same question that I asked Alex. What is your definition of servant leadership? And how do you see it being implemented within the different things that we do as specifically Burundian youth, but
Yeah.
also as a society as a whole?
So I want to touch a little bit on what you just said on following people. I don't think there's anything wrong with following people. I think that people naturally gravitate towards people that are
Other
speaking the
people,
same language as them, people who
right?
are resonating to them. So I see nothing wrong with that. I think you can learn from anybody. I learn a lot from people I follow. In fact, I'm very intentional about people I follow because I want to be able to learn from them and be able to feel like I'm still learning and feeding my mind, sometimes spirit and soul on a regular basis.
Right.
But I had a little bit of struggle around that question. What does a servant leader look like? Because
Uh-huh.
again, when we go back to my definition of what I think a leader is, having to add servant in front of the leadership, it actually takes away from what leadership's purpose is about. Because
Uh-huh.
leadership is service. So how do you have a servant servicer? Like it just
Yeah,
didn't.
it
I
doesn't
couldn't
make sense.
connect.
It's redundant.
Right. I
Uh-huh.
couldn't connect that in my mind because I'm like, I think people who go into leadership should understand that leadership is about service, and
Mhm.
we shouldn't glamorize, leaders who are serving because that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And I think it's encouraging more people to go back into that style of living where the people who chose to be at the front leading others are actually serving.
Mhm.
You can't ask me to do something that you're not doing. You can't tell me to do something that you're not doing and you're not willing to do, because that makes you a fraud.
Mhm.
So I think I had a little bit of and I did write it down. I was like, I don't know what this question means, because I was like, I'm not sure I'm really understanding what this
Uh-huh.
means. But I did like what Alex said in his answer on that. I do concur with a lot of stuff that he said, especially when it comes to Burundian leadership. But again, for me, it's about really holding people accountable to understand what those roles mean and what it means to be in those specific roles, and holding people accountable to what they're doing and what they're saying. Like, you cannot be a leader if you are not willing to serve. You cannot be a leader if service is not your number one
Mhm.
thing that drives gives you joy. Like, for me, I enjoy serving people and I enjoy doing things for people. So that's what I can say around servant leadership. I do want to know what you think about it, because you didn't really get to share that. So please
No,
do
I think
share.
no, so I think it depends on what your definition of leadership is in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
because with Alex, he was talking also about as being a leader. Also, as a leader, you're also a servant. But then he went on to discuss the whole emphasis on community service. Um, and I think it's sort of I think the whole idea is brought about to sort of distinguish between what we normally see or are taught about, being a leader, or because again, I think I go to the whole idea as I was talking about with following people rather than principles and visions.
Right.
And so,
Yes.
if your whole uh, emphasis is primarily or just following a certain person, or yourself or serving yourself, in
Mm-hmm.
your in the role that you are in, then it could be different from somebody who's saying, okay, I am going to take this leadership role in this grassroots community,
Right.
and my emphasis, or what I want to focus on, will be serving this community or serving this particular cause rather
Mm-hmm.
than myself. So I
Right.
guess again, it depends on what your um,
I agree.
definition is fundamentally.
I agree. And I think that one of the things that sometimes we forget when we get too enwrapped into, leadership and servitude and all that stuff is that everybody has a specific goal, a specific plan, a specific, I guess, destiny that they're supposed to follow and implement and do in their lives. There's nothing wrong with having personal goals that you need to meet.
Right.
Um, I think what makes you a leader is your willingness to sacrifice some of your personal agenda to be able to accomplish the collective goals. So when you're in a team and you're playing a game and you know what you want to accomplish for yourself, but you also know that this is what the team needs to do to continue to win as a team. And so what makes you a leader is your ability to say, I'm going to let this go. This is a personal goal. I'll drop this one personal goal so that the team can win.
Hmm.
So, but that being said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a personal goal, a personal plan.
Right.
I think that we're all individually made for a reason. We all have different finger DNA for a specific
Perfect. Hmm.
purpose. So I do not believe that people have to drop, you know, and if you put it in a Christian context, I think a lot of Christian people do this, where they're like, I've died, and the common goal that I live. Like, yeah, I get that, but you came here to accomplish something specific. You got to make sure that that's also a priority to you, but make sure that
Exactly.
what makes you not a good person is when you are focused on just self-serving. And it's what has built this system. It's what has built, capitalism. It's what has created hunger, killings, and all this stuff, that all these problems that we have in the world, is that people took that too far. So anything in excess is actually very terrible. But if
Right.
you focus on, how do I accomplish my personal goals, into how do I fit them into the team's vision? And and sometimes it hurts to let go of a personal goal where you're like, I really, really wanted to do this, but if I do it, here's the amount of people who are going to be impacted by my decision,
Hmm.
versus where if I drop it, only I'm going to be impacted. It's not a big deal because I'm only one person.
Right.
I'm going to sacrifice this for the common goal. A lot of times, though, we have people who are in leadership who are not willing to sacrifice their own personal goals. And personal goals are great. But if you have like 250 personal goals, then it becomes a problem because you're really self-serving. So
Right.
how do you reconcile all of those things into the common goal, into team playing? I think it's important that people actually start playing sports, because sports really teach you how to team play,
Hmm.
and how to lose, and people need to learn to lose, because
To
when
lose.
you when you lose, you learn a lot of skills that will be helpful into your leadership skills, and into your life in general, because you're bruised, and your ego's bruised, and you heal and you move forward, and then you focus on the team. So I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure that I put that out, that people do not start thinking that because we're all doing the collective thing and we're trying to have a
Hmm.
global, common goal, or a community common goal, or the collective goal, that
Yeah.
they have to drop all of their specific personal goals. Like, there's a way to build on your personal goals through the team.
Exactly. Yeah, and I agree with that. And here I kind of want to shift the conversation uh, and speak specifically on the Burundian community and within Burundi. With Alex, we're discussing the project that Burundian Youth Worldwide is working on with building
Yes.
the school. Um, and I don't know if you are involved in the Burundian community, if there is a large Burundian community where you are, but how do you see the
Mhm.
state of youth leadership there, and do you see any challenges?
So I would be a liar if I said I was like heavily involved in the Burundian community
Uh-huh.
here in London. We do have a Burundian community. It's present. I think we're everywhere, to be honest. It is not as big as other communities. We're still a very small community, and a lot of us have sorry, my son's talking. I do apologize.
No, it's okay.
A lot of us have grown up together. We've been here, you know, a long time. We've known each other for a long time, and we're all really kind of like focused on doing our own thing. But one of the things that I guess I grew up appreciating was the fact that we would come together to connect through food, through culture, through different things. Every year we celebrate, you know, what is it? Independence Day together. I know that sounds like a very small thing, but in the terms of connecting and getting to a place where we can start thinking about what we want to build together, we have to be connecting with one another. In the diaspora, it's really hard to get people rallied around, you know, what we want to do in the future, because sometimes there seems to be a lack of a plan and a vision, like I said earlier. So I have, I know you guys were talking about the school earlier, which is something that I've been very interested in joining, because it's a vision, it's a plan, and the vision is to educate Burundians, and I can rally myself around that. But when we just meet just to meet, sometimes it can be really difficult. And I am serving the city of London as a whole, and not just a one specific part of the city. So I hope that that can rally people to want to be part of what we're doing, so that they can learn some of the skills necessary to also, you know, impact or bring some light into other communities that they want to bring into. So no, I don't think I'm fully involved in a specific Burundian community here in London. I do participate in some of the events, but I go in as, you know, participant, not as a leader.
Okay, I guess I want to shift that question then to something else. What do you see as the role of diaspora in terms of Burundian development?
I think the diaspora has a huge role to play, because we have some type of a lot of us have the basic needs met, right? A lot of us have homes, we have food, we have jobs, we have things that our larger population in Burundi does not have. So we have some type of space to think about things that people wouldn't have space to think about when they're thinking about, where's my next meal going to come from? How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to put my kids in school? So this is where we come together, have a vision, and we have to be specific about what the vision is. When it comes to the Burundian diaspora, or even like the local people in Burundi, we haven't really come up with a plan. You know, I've said this to Annie, and I can see Annie typing. I'm not sold on anything yet. I'm not feeling like there's something we're rallying behind yet, but I do see a lot of people who are starting to get up and be really engaged. And now is the moment for someone to rally all of those people and say, this is what we're trying to, this is the Burundi we want to see in the next 50 years. This is the Burundi we want to see in the next 100 years. And then once we can do that, every single person is going to bring in their personal skills to be able to contribute to that. I heard someone talk about, I think it's Alex on the live here, he talked about, or you did actually, the mistrust, you know, when you start sending money, it's so easy to just take money and send money, but where's that money going? How's that money actually contributing to the vision that we want to see for Burundi, right? So if we're going to ask people to participate and build, we also have to find a way to engage with one another in the diaspora, and also engage with the local Burundians and build that oneness. And a lot of times it's awkward, because there's a lot of differences between Burundians, right? We're so different. I would like to say that there's a lot of little communities in the Burundian community. So how do we still work together, even in our differences, and even in our different ways of planning or seeing things, right? Because what I talked about when it comes to the collective vision, you really have to find a way to engage the discourse, the people who are not sold. You will have the sold people, the converted, which is I guess the early majority or whatever. And then you still need the people who don't necessarily buy into your plans, but understand the common goal. So if we Burundians can have one common goal, it would be so much easier to be engaged into the work that we want to do. And I'm not sure, and I really don't want to lie to anybody just to make them feel good. I'm not sure that I feel like we're there yet. We're not in a place where we have one specific common goal that we're going to rally towards. Like, people can focus on, creating a school and helping educating people. I've also seen some projects around supporting women and their menstruation, and just different little projects here and there, which are very impactful. But in the end, they're all separate from the common goal, and it's always supported by just a specific group of people. So I think we need, and I'm saying this for also the people who are local and have access to our local leaders. Someone needs to ask them, what's the vision? What's the plan? We want to be sold into it. We want to be able to support, but we want to know what's the vision. We want to know what's the plan. And we want to know how the diaspora is actually going to contribute into that collective plan. That's what I want to know. And
right. If you allow me
I'm
to interrupt there, though,
yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, I think those little projects, personally, are sort of a progress that we are making, because, looking at, several years ago, like let's say 10 years ago,
Right.
I don't think we had sort of the same movement as we are seeing now. And as you're talking about a collective goal or vision, and you're bringing in here the leaders in Burundi and the people who are on the ground, I want to ask, so do you think that common or collective goal is something that has to be agreed upon, by the local leadership and the diaspora? And how do we bridge that, in your opinion? And or what is the role of young people in that goal creation?
That's a really, really good question. I'm going to try to answer it the best way I can. I'm not an expert into this conversation.
Oh yeah, of course. Just an opinion.
But I think that there has to be some type of consultation that happens across the country, right? Where we need to understand, where are Burundians right now? What are the needs of Burundians right now? What is how do Burundians want to see Burundi move forward? And what are the things that Burundi wants to see for the next, 50, 100 years? And once we can do that, then, and it's not just for the local Burundians. I think this would have to be for the local and the diaspora. Obviously, the diaspora needs and plans are going to look a little different from the local needs and plans. And then we can figure out a way to merge those two plans and then support one another. There are people in the diaspora who are willing to go home and leave the countries that they're in right now to go and support this work. And then there are other people like myself who are willing to support from the countries that we're in,
right.
and want to contribute based on where we're at, because Burundi is also on a global map, and if you can remember, part of our national anthem says Shingichumu Mashing, which means Ushingichuma who gets it. So you have to continue to carry the legacy of our ancestors into the words that we actually sing all the time when we think about Burundi. And I think there's a way for all of us to contribute from our respective countries and from the local perspective. If we could find a plan that has nothing to do with what we look like, what we sound like, what we eat like, but has more to do with our development as a people, educating our people, growing our people, and actually living out, the words of our national anthem, and beginning to honor those words and live it out. So that's my personal opinion. Again, I'm not an expert into this conversation. I'm just saying it as someone who sometimes engages in these conversations. I just find it, for me, I haven't cleared my head around how I can contribute yet, but I do want to contribute, and I do want to support Burundi on a global map, on a level where we can continue to gushinga icumu aho tugeze, so that Burundi bwerekanwa aho turi hose, right? So that's my part. That's my part.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that any of us are experts in this, honestly. I think we're all learning as we go, and through the experiences that we have, we sort of gain new ideas and new outlooks on how that, how this could look like. Right. And that's and I'm asking that specifically because, as a councilwoman, I think this is the whole collective thinking. I feel like it's something that you do on a daily, and I'll just sort of see how you're thinking about that specific.
I think we have to connect with everyone, and we have to be willing to listen to to everyone. And we have to get away from the things that divide us and focus on the things that bring us together. And then we have to be, willing to work with other people's plans, but with the common goal being that in the end, we're all looking for a safe and better world for everyone, right? That sounds very broad, but as broad as it is, it's where we should start, especially with all the divisions that we have amongst different communities.
Okay, that being said, speaking on that, I want to sort of shift back to the conversation of leadership again, and kind of ask, how do you feel your leadership empowers young people or youth, or specifically Burundian youth?
So I think that, in my opinion, I think that representation matters. A lot of times when you feel represented, whether it's through ideas, through principles, values, or even through the people who actually look like you, it encourages you to want to engage more. Because again, the reason why many people, or even the youth, are not engaged is because we're not really creating the spaces for people to want to be engaged, because we're still at that top-down tyranny issue, right? We're not at a level where we're meeting at the same table with one plan and rallying around it. We're still top-down tyranny issue. So representation really matters, and it really gets people engaged. Engaging and reframing and reconsidering what political spaces look like, for me, is what I walked into politics wanting to do and continue to do. People call it grassroots organizations and connecting in the grassroots, at the grassroots level. I believe that too, but I also think that we really need to reframe that and just say we need to continue to connect with our communities, because if you can see from your role that this is a grassroots organization that I have to go down and connect with, then you're really not feeling like you belong in that space. So we have to, grassroots organizations have to allow leaders to be involved in their communities, and we leaders have to want to be involved, or actually have to try and be involved in grassroots organizations. And when you work that way, I find that my work gets easier when I'm connecting with grassroots organizations to do my work, because I'm, the youngest person on council. I'm a woman, and I'm a Black woman, and the first Black woman to be elected on this council. So there has been a lot of challenges for me going forward. But when you're working with the majority of voices, it helps you get the work done, even when it's a very difficult, it's not a conducive environment all the time. And having to go back, having to stay connected. I didn't leave my community when I got elected. I stayed involved in my community, and my community helps me do the work that needs to be done. So that brings a lot more people to want to engage. Like seeing that type of I guess, ways of doing politics, it brings people to want to be engaged. And I do want to continue engaging more people, so that we're going from working from a place where I'm bringing in the work that needs to be done and doing I'm policy creating or making the work that actually is connected to other work that's being done across the city, right? So that's the second thing. The other thing too, I've talked about it, was again just avoiding the tyranny between the top down and the down top, because if you don't pay attention to that, you get driven in different directions that you didn't plan to get driven into. So yeah,
I really like your perspective on representation and how it matters in terms of like how how effective your leadership can be. And again, I congratulate you on your pioneership.
Thank you.
On all those different things. And it's definitely for me, if I were trying to join or pursue political leadership roles, I think I would look at you as an inspiration.
I'm told by that.
And just from your approach and your outlook on things, and I guess talking about myself too, or just thinking of young Burundians who may be reluctant to join their local leaderships, or even national or international leadership. What would be your message to them? And I kind of want to add another question there. I don't know. I may ask it again in case you forget it, but do you feel like you sort of have a double loyalty when you're serving in these communities? If not, or if not, do you think that's either a good or bad thing, or how do you navigate that. And by double loyalty, I mean in terms of like serving the community where you are now, versus Burundi,
Okay, I get that.
wanting to interact with Burundi in the community there.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to start with that question and I'll end with the first part of the question. I don't feel that way. I think sometimes it's difficult to follow up on everything that's happening
Right.
everywhere because I have a lot of work to do. And, there's a lot of work to do within my community, with my job, and with like the 8 other boards that I sit on. It's a lot of work. And I'm a
Hmm.
mom, right? Like my
Yeah.
first ministry is taking care of my son and all the stuff that comes with it. So it's a lot. Sometimes my brain is just really saturated, but I
Hmm.
do not feel that I'm tied down, or I don't have to have, or I have to have 2 different loyalties. I think that um, this is who I am. This is my identity. And my identity comes with a lot of different communities, and I respect and honor each and every one of them.
Right.
So, and some people feel represented, by me through the fact that I'm Burundian, others through the fact that I'm African, others through the fact that I'm a refugee, others through the fact that I'm Black, or a woman, or just different things. And I just try to stay flowing because those are all ingrained into my identity, and they're all woven into my identity. And I love being connected to all those things. And I love feeling like I'm, doing things on a global level. You're
Uh-huh.
a child of the world. You don't belong to one specific person. But I do bring a lot of my values from being Burundian into everything I do, because that's where I was born. That's
Hmm.
what was given to me through breast milk, right? So
Hmm.
and even like the home life, right? Like you're still living as a Burundian even though you live in Canada.
Right.
So and then anyway, so I don't feel conflicted. I feel like I can equally be useful for both worlds, and even try to connect both worlds to kind of like marry each other in a way, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
And then your last question on what I would tell younger people who are in the diaspora want to be involved in politics. So a couple things. First, I think you need to educate yourself and understand on how the issues impact you. A lot of times, because we are not from here, we came from somewhere else, we can feel like these things are arm's length, but they actually impact you a lot more than you believe.
Hmm.
So paying attention to what's happening and how dissecting and understanding how that impacts you is really important,
Right.
because that will lead you to start voting and how you vote as well. I would also encourage people to start engaging with different people in their communities, and start to engage in the things that they care about the most. And I would also ask that if you're going to vote for someone, hold them accountable, track the metrics of what they said they're going to do, and keep asking questions and keep wanting to know, because a lot of times, um, I'm going to say legislations or bills that affect you directly are often passed very quietly, because they
Right.
know that most communities are not paying attention. They know that the youth are not paying attention. And then you wake up one day and your entire life has been changed, and you didn't even know when that
You
happened
never know
because
what
you were
happened.
not engaged in asking questions.
Hmm.
So it's important. People say, I don't like politics, I don't want to be involved in politics, but everything you do is political. The fact that
It's
you live in the
affected.
diaspora is political. If
Hmm.
politics was not involved, you wouldn't be in the diaspora. You would be home,
Right.
enjoying your Wugari Nisombe. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're in the diaspora because it's political. The foods you eat is political. The way you go to work is political. The work you work at is political. Everything you do is political. So it's important that you understand that if you don't get involved, you have given the power to other people to make decisions for you, when you can take that power back to make the right decisions for you. And the last thing I guess I would say is, you are a leader, whether you believe it or not. Everybody is a leader. Exercise your leadership, exercise your right of passage on this planet, and contribute for the betterment of all.
Hmm.
So that is my thing. And um, just do it. Like, just get up and do it. Don't wait for people to ask you to do it. Don't
Hmm.
wait for people to beg you to do it. just do it because I think that it's important, and it's ingrained in our lives and affects our lives very differently. And if everybody can step up and decide what they're going to do to contribute, then some people would have lesser loads or lesser opportunities to corrupt the system as well.
Wow. Very inspirational, just like Alex, or if not even more. And I really enjoyed your take on representation in your leadership roles. I think that's key to understanding how we're impacting our communities and others, and also the rallying around the collective goal or vision. Um, I speak for everybody in the comments here that what like you just I gave us a lot of wisdom, especially for us who are still growing up and learning from people like you. Um, so I don't know if you have any other last words, or a message that you would like to give to young Burundians who are watching.
Oh yeah, I just want to encourage you guys for all the work you're doing. Ndagano School, komera ku rugamba. So it's awesome, and I'm going to continue to support you guys. And I appreciate you guys having these platforms for the diaspora and the local Burundian community to be able to connect and to understand the different works that we're doing across the globe, and continue to gushinga icumu mu mashinga. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Bless.
joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, bless. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
I don't know how to close this up. I learned a lot. I don't know if you did. If you didn't learn anything through these two conversations, I highly recommend that you go back and rewatch these two videos once this live ends. And I thank everybody for joining us. That was a very, very fruitful conversation. And we can continue these conversations in our different circles and the things that we do. I just want to remind everybody that we have a Kirundi essay writing contest happening. The deadline is September 1st. All you have to do is write a short story or essay in Kirundi, 1,500 characters. Send it to our email, to vulgane15@gmail.com. So again, we are still looking for short stories, essays. We've received a lot of them that are very, very, very impressive. I can barely read some of them because the vocabulary that's in there is really difficult. But we are looking forward to receiving more stories. And I wish everyone a good evening, night, wherever you are. Thank you all for joining us.